Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting warm stripes across the bedroom floor. Emily stretched, a smile playing on her lips as she threw off the covers. The anticipation of the day filled her with a buoyant energy. Today marked 2 decades with Michael, a milestone shimmering with shared memories. She tiptoed down the hallway, careful not to wake him, and into the kitchen. The coffee pot gurgled a familiar tune while she whisked eggs and sliced strawberries with practiced ease. The aroma of breakfast mingled with the scent of fresh linen from the tablecloth she had set out the night before. Everything was perfect. As the toast popped up, Emily reached for plates in the cupboard. That's when she noticed an envelope tucked away, almost shyly, behind a stack of bowls. Her name wasn't scrawled across the front. Instead, neat cursive spelled Claire. A chill crept up her spine. Curiosity nudged at her, and with hesitant fingers she slipped out the card. It fell open to reveal Michael's handwriting, intimate words meant for another. "To Claire, my guiding star," it began. And there, hidden behind the toaster, lay a bouquet of forget-me-nots, their tiny blue petals wilting at the edges. "Happy anniversary, Emily," she whispered to herself, her voice breaking the silence of the kitchen. The flowers dropped from her numb fingers, the card fluttering after them. Her special breakfast cooled, forgotten as the truth settled heavy on her shoulders. The clink of cutlery and the soft sizzle from the pan faded into the background. It was the stillness of the house that echoed loudest, the quiet betrayal that seeped into every corner, coating her world in a frost that wouldn't thaw. Hazel eyes, once brimming with warmth, now mirrored the hurt that constricted her heart. Michael's key turned in the lock, a sound that once signaled comfort, now a herald of confrontation. Emily stood in the foyer, the card and flowers clutched like evidence in a trial. "Michael," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. He paused, his eyes flicking to the items in her hands, then back to her face. "Emily, who is Claire?" The question was a blade, sharp and direct. He hesitated, the meticulous persona crumbling. His usual composure gave way to a frown, the lines on his forehead deepening. "I can explain," he began, but the air between them thickened with unspoken truths. "Explain." Emily's brow furrowed, a softness in her gaze conflicting with the steel in her tone. "Explain how my husband forgot our anniversary for her." "Emily, it's not that simple." Michael's voice held a tremor he didn't intend. "Make it simple, then." He swallowed hard, searching for an anchor in the tempest of his own making. "It's been happening for months. Claire and we've grown close. She understands the pressures of my work. Stop." Emily cut him off, her hand raised as if to ward off his words. She felt the room spin, each syllable a nail in the coffin of their marriage. "Emily, please." Michael reached out, but she stepped back, a chasm opening between them. "Did you plan to leave? To be with her?" There was a moment, a brief flicker, where the man she knew might have emerged, might have fought for them. But it passed. "Yes," he admitted, his blue eyes clouded with regret and resolve. "Our paths have diverged, Em. I need something different." "Something different," she echoed, the phrase hollow, tasting of betrayal. "Em, you have to understand." "I understand." Her voice cracked, but she held his gaze, strength rising from the ashes of her devastation. "You made your choice, Michael." He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the schism that had formed. There were no more words, just the sound of a breaking heart and the quiet rustle of paper as Emily set down the damning card and wilted flowers. "Goodbye, Michael." It was a whisper, a benediction for the end of all they had built. He left then, footsteps receding, leaving her amongst the fragments of a life she thought she knew. The door clicked shut, and Emily stood alone in the silence. Her chest tightened, breaths shallow and quick. She wrapped her arms around herself, a feeble shield against the cold absence that filled the room. She turned slowly, surveying the space that was theirs, no, hers now. The morning sun spilled through the window, casting a mocking glow on the empty chair where Michael used to sit. A shudder ran through her as she walked to the kitchen. Every surface seemed to echo with the life they had shared. The coffee pot, half full, still warm. She poured it down the sink, watched the dark liquid swirl away. Goodbyes weren't meant to be this quiet, this mundane. She picked up the phone, dialed a number committed to memory, and waited for the click, the breath before speech. "Michael," she began, her voice a blade of grass in the wind, "your things. I'll pack them. You should find somewhere else tonight." "Emily," his voice once a beacon, now a siren's call to rocky shores. "Please," it was both plea and command. "Okay," he said after a pause, and the line went dead. She moved robotically, gathering clothes, books, traces of him. Each item, a reminder, each drawer emptied, a step towards an unknowable future. She piled everything by the door, a monument to what was. Her hands shook as she placed the last of his belongings on top. The house creaked, settling into its new reality. Emily sank to the floor, the cool hardwood grounding her as sobs racked her body. She let them come, a tide of grief washing over her, saltwater trails marking the passage of 20 years. In the quiet aftermath, she found herself in their bedroom, fingers tracing the outline of where his picture had been. The wall, blemished by a lighter patch of paint, stared back at her, a blank canvas in a suddenly too big room. Her reflection in the mirror caught her eye. A woman with hazel eyes, usually warm, now dulled by hurt. But there was something else there, beneath the sorrow. A flicker of resolve, a whisper of the strength that had carried her this far. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the woman in the glass. "Tomorrow you rise." The day waned, shadows growing long, and with each passing hour, a silent vow took root within her. This was not the end of Emily Hartford. It was perhaps the beginning. Morning light spilled through the window, casting a warm glow on the dust motes dancing in the air. Emily stood before an easel, a relic from her past. Her hand hesitated, then grasped a brush with purpose. She squeezed tubes of paint onto a palette, colors blooming like spring flowers on the wooden surface. The blank canvas taunted her, its emptiness echoing the hollow in her chest. With a deep breath, she touched the brush to the surface, and color seeped into the fibers. Broad strokes filled the void, blues and greens swirling into an abstract sea. Muscle memory guided her hand, the act of creating dulling the sharp edges of her pain. "Hello, old friend," she murmured, losing herself in the rhythm of the brush against canvas. The act was meditative, each swipe a step away from betrayal, a dance toward healing. Days melded into one another, and the painting grew, a testament to resilience. When the last touch dried, Emily stepped back. It wasn't just paint, it was a piece of her, raw and beautiful. The chime of her phone broke the trance. A reminder. Today was the day she would venture out, reconnect with the world beyond these walls. She had signed up for art classes at the local community center, a decision that both excited and terrified her. She arrived early, clutching her portfolio like a shield. The classroom smelled of linseed oil and clay, a scent that spoke of possibilities. Easels stood in a semicircle, a throne awaiting its queen. "Welcome," greeted the instructor, a woman with streaks of cerulean in her hair. "Find a spot. We'll begin shortly." Emily chose an easel by the window, setting down her portfolio. She glanced around, taking in the faces of her classmates, strangers united by the desire to create. "Let's start with something simple," the instructor said. "Introduce yourself to your neighbor, then we'll share with the group." "Emily Hartford," she said to the woman beside her, her voice stronger than she felt. "Nice to meet you, Emily." "I'm Gwen," her neighbor smiled, warmth in her eyes. The class began, and Emily let the dialogue fade into the background. Her focus narrowed to the blank paper before her, the charcoal in her hand poised to awaken dreams long dormant. She sketched lines, curves forming, the outside world melting away as her inner landscape took shape on the page. "Beautiful work," Gwen whispered, peering over. "Thank you," Emily replied, allowing herself a small smile. She added a flourish to her drawing, satisfaction blooming within her. The hurt remained, a shadow at the edge of her consciousness, but here, amidst graphite and parchment, Emily found solace. "All right, everyone," the instructor called. "Let's take a break. Then we'll discuss our pieces." Emily set down her charcoal, palms dusted black. She studied her work, seeing not just shapes but hope etched in grey. The path ahead was uncertain, but on this canvas of new beginnings, Emily Hartford was finding her way. Emily dipped her brush into the cerulean, flecks of color speckling the white paper like fragments of sky falling to earth. The chatter around her softened into a comforting hum, and she found herself drawn into the camaraderie that colored the room. Across the easel, Gwen swapped a joke with Tom, their laughter mingling with the rustle of brushes on canvas. "Your use of light is incredible," Mara commented, leaning over Emily's shoulder. Her words felt like a gentle nudge, urging Emily further into the landscape taking shape before her. "Thanks," Emily murmured, surprise coloring her tone more than modesty. Encouragement in this room was as abundant as the paint on their palettes. "Let's see them all at the end," Gwen suggested. Heads nodded in agreement, the pact of shared vulnerability sealed without question. Later, as they laid their paintings out for critique, Emily saw more than just images. She saw stories, raw and vibrant, each one a silent whisper of support from her newfound tribe. Their nods and smiles spoke volumes, wrapping her in a collective embrace that strengthened her resolve. Back home, the phone rang, shattering the silence. Hesitation tugged at Emily, but she lifted the receiver. "Sarah." "Hey, Em. I heard about Michael." Emily sank onto the couch, the familiar timbre of Sarah's voice weaving through her defenses. "It's been tough," she admitted, eyes tracing the patterns in the carpet. "Listen, I've been there," Sarah said, her voice steady, a lifeline thrown across miles and years. "You're going to get through this." "Feels like I'm drowning some days," Emily confessed, the truth slipping out easier than she expected. "Remember when we'd swim at the lake? You were always braver than me." Sarah's chuckle was soft, tinged with nostalgia. "Hard to be brave without solid ground beneath your feet," Emily replied, a wistful smile touching her lips. "Then make your own ground. Take it one stroke at a time. You have something now, painting right." Sarah's questions were not probing but affirming. "Right. It helps," Emily said, her fingers absently curling as if around a brush. "Good. Hold on to that. And I'm here. We can talk budgets, lawyers, or if you want to scream about how unfair it all is, I've got excellent ears for that too." "Thank you." Emily's voice was soft, gratitude shimmering through her words. "Anytime." "Really?" Sarah insisted, the promise wrapped in sincerity. "Talk soon?" Emily asked, already feeling steadier. "Absolutely," Sarah affirmed. The call ended, but the warmth lingered. Emily stood, eyes drifting to her, painting a tangible piece of her journey back to herself. With her art and Sarah's words anchoring her, Emily Hartford felt the first threads of a new tapestry weaving into place. Canvas after canvas, each a fragment of Emily Hartford's soul, adorned the whitewashed walls of the local gallery. The scent of oil paint still lingered faintly on some, betraying their recent completion. Patrons milled about, heads tilted, eyes narrowed in appraisal. Whispers of admiration threaded through the air, weaving around Emily like a comforting shawl. "Remarkable use of color," one observer muttered to another, gesturing towards a vibrant piece where reds and oranges clashed with blues and purples in a beautiful cacophony. "Thank you," Emily replied, her voice steady, but her heart thumping a rapid staccato against her ribs. She tucked a loose strand of brown hair behind her ear, a habit of modesty that she was slowly unlearning. The gallery's soft lighting cast a glow on her paintings, lending life to the images. People stopped, gazed, moved on, and every nod, every smile they directed towards her work stitched another patch onto the quilt of her confidence. Her hands, once tentative and unsure as they mixed colors and guided brushes, now moved with purpose and assurance. "Your sister mentioned you'd taken up painting again," a friend more acquaintance than confidant said, approaching her with a glass of wine in hand. "But I had no idea." "Neither did I," Emily admitted, the corners of her mouth lifting into a genuine smile. "Not until I started again." "Clearly, you were meant for this," the woman declared, her gaze sweeping over the collection. Perhaps, Emily conceded. But deep down, she knew it was more than mere destiny. It was perseverance. It was nights spent awake, flicking bristles across canvas, when sleep proved elusive and thoughts turned too loud. As the evening waned, the initial flutter of nerves in Emily's stomach gave way to something firmer, something akin to steel. The gallery door opened and closed, ushering in cool drafts of air and new clusters of viewers. Her hazel eyes, once windows to a soul wearied by betrayal, now reflected the pride of someone who had traversed through darkness and emerged into light. "Are any available for purchase?" someone inquired, pointing towards a landscape where dawn seemed to break eternally over a silent field. "All of them," Emily responded, her voice devoid of the tremor it once carried. She straightened her spine, feeling her stature rise not only in inches but in presence. "Each one is a story waiting to be shared." "Then I'll start my own collection with this one," the patron decided, and Emily felt another brick lay itself in the foundation of her new life. The gallery began to empty, leaving only the echo of footsteps and the soft hum of a closing door. Emily surveyed her work, her creations, her children of paint and passion. They were her testament to survival, to the rediscovery of self-worth cradled within the bristles of used paintbrushes. "Quite a night," the gallery owner said, breaking the silence. "You should be proud." Emily nodded, allowing the truth of his words to seep in, to replace the remnants of hurt with the solid weight of achievement. "I am," she said finally, a declaration more to herself than to him. "I truly am." The gallery buzzed with chatter. Paintings lined the walls, each a window into Emily's soul. The air smelled of wine and varnish. Emily's eyes flickered across the room, taking in the faces admiring her work. She stood amongst them, her heart a steady drumbeat of newfound confidence. A familiar figure crossed the threshold. Michael. His gaze found Emily's art before it found her. His lips parted slightly, an unspoken recognition of her talent hanging in the air between them. "Emily," he said, approaching her. His voice was low, hesitant. "Your work, it's exceptional." "Thank you," her reply was measured, wary. Michael's hands were in his pockets, his shoulders tense. He glanced around the room, taking in the evidence of her success. "I heard about the galleries. I had to see for myself." Emily nodded, her arms folded protectively. "You've seen. What now?" He looked at her, really looked, as if seeing the woman she had become. "I made a mistake," he admitted. His blue eyes searched hers, seeking absolution. "Have you?" Emily's question was a soft challenge, her hazel eyes holding his. "Leaving you for Claire." It wasn't right, Michael's words stumbled out. A confession laid bare. "Is that so?" Emily's eyebrows lifted, skepticism shadowing her features. "I ended it with her. I want to make things right with us." Michael's tone begged understanding, his posture open yet uncertain. "Us," Emily echoed. The word hung there, heavy with history. "Emily," Michael started but stopped, his regret palpable. "Your decisions have already spoken volumes." Michael. Emily's voice didn't waver, it carried the strength of her journey, the solidity of her achievements. "Please," he tried again. "Good night, Michael." Emily cut him off, a gentle finality in her words. She turned away, leaving him standing amidst the murmurs of the crowd, the taste of regret bitter on his tongue. The door closed with a soft click behind Michael, and Emily was alone. Her heart beat in a rapid staccato against the quiet hum of the gallery. The lingering scent of his cologne, once a comforting presence, now seemed intrusive, mingling with the oil paints and varnish that marked her territory, her world. She walked to her latest painting, fingers grazing the textured canvas. Each stroke was a testament to her resilience, a patchwork of healing etched in color and form. In her reflection on the glossy surface, she saw the woman she had become, someone who no longer sought validation from another's gaze. "Are you all right?" the gallery owner's voice cut through her reverie. Emily turned, offering a small smile. "Yes, thank you," she replied. The truth in those words surprised her, a sign of how much had changed. "Your work is remarkable," he said, gesturing to the vibrant canvases. "Thank you." Emily's response came easier now, pride swelling where insecurity once took root. As the owner drifted away, Emily let her thoughts unfurl like the ribbons of paint on her easel. Michael's plea for reconciliation echoed in her mind, a siren's call to a ship that had learned to navigate treacherous waters. Could she risk the safety she'd found for the promise of what used to be? A laugh bubbled from a cluster of patrons. Emily watched them, recognizing the camaraderie, the shared appreciation for art that she now felt a part of. She had built this a life rich with purpose and passion, independent of the man who now sought her forgiveness. Her hand lifted to touch the pendant at her throat, a piece she'd crafted herself. It was solid, real, much like the determination that now coursed through her veins. Michael had ignited something within her, a spark that became a blaze she no longer wished to extinguish. "Excuse me, MS. Hartford. Your work is inspiring," a young woman approached, her eyes alight with admiration. "Thank you." Emily felt her lips curve into a genuine smile, her spirit buoyed by the honest praise. "Would you tell me about this piece?" the woman asked, pointing to an abstract swirl of blues and greens. Of course, Emily stepped closer, her gaze following the lines and curves she'd lovingly crafted. As she spoke, her words painted a picture of her journey. No mention of Michael, no hint of past betrayals. Just the art, her refuge, her strength. "Wow. It's like you've captured life itself," the woman said, visibly moved. "Maybe I have," Emily mused. She realized then that her future lay outstretched before her, a canvas awaiting her touch. With or without Michael, that canvas would be filled with the rich hues of her ongoing transformation. The evening waned, and the crowd thinned. Emily remained, surrounded by her creations, feeling the pulse of her new life. She knew that whatever decision lay ahead, it would be hers alone to make, and that knowledge was a masterpiece in itself. Emily stood alone after the gallery had emptied, the echo of lingering conversations and the scent of wine hanging in the air. The walls, adorned with the vibrant colors of her soul's labor, stood as silent witnesses to her metamorphosis. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of a canvas, a touchstone to the reality she had crafted. The texture under her fingertips was rough, raw. It mirrored the journey that had brought her here. "Closing time," MS Hartford, the night security guard, announced, his voice respectful yet firm. "Thank you," she replied, her voice a soft melody against the quiet backdrop of the gallery. She gathered her coat, the fabric whispering across her arms, a tactile farewell to the evening's armor. Outside, the night held a crisp clarity. Stars punctuated the dark sky, each one a note in an unwritten symphony. Emily's breath clouded before her, an ephemeral testament to the life within her chest. Emily, Michael's voice cut through the night, a familiar chord that once commanded her attention. She turned, her heart a steady drumbeat in her ears. He was a silhouette against the city lights, hope and hesitation etched into his posture. "Have you thought about what I said?" he asked, the distance between them measured in more than just steps. She nodded, her eyes locking onto his for a deliberate moment. "I have. Emily, being without you, it's like trying to breathe with no air." "I'm incomplete." His words reached for her, seeking to bridge the chasm his actions had carved. "Michael, we were a masterpiece," she began, her voice threaded with the strength of self-awareness. "But even masterpieces can be reframed, repurposed." He took a step closer, but she raised a hand, a painter's hand, an artist's stop. "I choose me, Michael. My art, my life, my future." Her declaration was a brushstroke of finality. "Can't we? Your path is yours to walk, as mine is mine." Emily's tone left no room for negotiation. Turning from him, she walked away, the click of her heels a metronome to her newfound resolve. With each step, the weight of doubt shed from her shoulders, leaving space for the lightness of possibility. The city embraced her, its rhythm syncing with the beat of her heart. Emily Hartford moved forward, painting her destiny with broad strokes of courage and splashes of joy. Tonight, she had chosen herself, and tomorrow awaited, a blank canvas ready for her touch.